Hi guys, I'm Karan Gokani from Hoppers and I'm going to be doing a deviled paneer dish for you today. Now deviled dishes are really popular in Sri Lanka. They are a Sri Lankan Chinese dish and they tend to be stir fried with lots and lots of chili, few basic spices, and what I love most about them is that they're super versatile. We've made them at the restaurant with paneer, we've done seafood in the past. At home you could do it with tofu if you want to be vegan, you could even do it with potatoes. Very often I just boil potatoes and then squeeze them up, give them a quick fry, and then you could do exactly the same recipe. Alternatively, if you're using prawns or squid, just dust them in a little bit of corn flour, give them a quick fry. Deep fry is ideal, otherwise toss them in a fair amount of oil, drain them, and then again follow the steps of the recipe to make the sauce and add them back in. So here I've got a whole bunch of ingredients, lots of them just found in my fridge. I don't expect you to have all of them, but many of them are pretty basic. I'm going to go into the ingredients in a lot of detail and then we're going to get cooking. Okay, here we've got the ingredients. So I'm using coconut oil. It does set a bit like this, but when it comes up to heat, it'll melt. It's a little bit like Indian ghee. Coconut vinegar, you can use cider vinegar instead. Anything sharp. Garlic paste. I always keep a little bit of garlic paste in a jar. You can make it at home by peeling some garlic, mixing in some oil and just blitzing it, and then it lasts for a long time. Much easier than having to peel and chop up every single time. Ginger paste, almost the same thing. Peel the ginger. Sometimes if the peel is not too thick, you can even leave the peel on and blitz it with water. Tomato paste, so double concentrated tomato paste that comes in a tube, a little bit like toothpaste. Tomato ketchup, everyone knows that. Sea salt, some sugar, again this is optional. I think it balances out the sourness of the dish and the spice as well. And then in terms of ethnic stuff, there's chili flakes, there's cinnamon sticks, there's Sri Lankan cinnamon. If you can't find this, you can use cassia bark as well, which is harder, looks a little bit more like a steak, and then fresh curry leaves. Again, if you can't find these, and they're usually larger, these are small, very unique variety from Sri Lanka. I've been lucky enough to grow at home, but you can find the wider leaves, or you can even use dried curry leaves. I'm not a huge fan of dried curry leaves, but if you were to use them, just soak them in a little bit of water for a while and then fry them as you would the fresh ones. Now the great thing about this dish, as I mentioned earlier, is that you can use chicken, you can use seafood, you can use a whole load of things. You can use tofu if you wanted to make it vegan. I think it's great with paneer, it works really well. And then different kinds of chilies. You've got, these ones are called banana chilies. If you can't find these, you can use green peppers instead. You've got a large red chili, again a little bit for color, you can use a red pepper instead. And then these are great, these are little Indian finger chilies. I found them at Tesco, I find them at Waitrose once in a while. You can substitute them for Thai chilies, but if you are using Thai, they tend to be spicier. The small ones, just use one or maybe avoid it completely if you don't want it too spicy. And then I've got a couple of shallots, an onion, and a little bit of spring onion that I had in the fridge that I'm going to use to garnish. It is great because of the Chinese heritage of the dish. Spring onions are really very different from the normal onions, and it's all about different kinds of chilies, different kinds of tomatoes, and different kinds of onions. Right, so I've chopped up the ingredients here and we're about to start cooking. I'm using a traditional karai or traditional wok here, a non-stick pan to fry off some of the other ingredients. But you could use a Chinese wok or any large non-stick, or if you're using something that's not non-stick, then just make sure you use enough oil. Coconut oil. Like I said, this is going to melt, a little bit like butter or ghee. Good tablespoon of that. Wok is on medium to high heat right now. So I'm going to start off with cinnamon in that oil, just a little bit of the cinnamon in there. And then as it heats up a little bit, I'm going to go in with the shallots. So these were 2 banana shallots. They're about that size. If you get really big ones, use maybe 1.5. Again, it's quite a forgiving recipe, so you don't have to follow the ingredients to the T. Get a gist of it. Lots of onions, different kinds of chilies, and tomatoes, and you can do it with whatever you have lying around. So you kind of want to hear that sizzle when it goes in and just leave it for a second. I like to add a touch of salt whenever I'm frying off onions or shallots because it pulls the water out and then that helps to caramelize a little better. Give it a quick stir so it's all coated in the fat, in the oil, and then just spread it out and just leave it for a second. I'm also going to add the curry leaves in at this stage. These were the small curry leaves I was telling you about. They're very unique Sri Lankan curry leaf. A friend of mine gifted me a plant. It's been going pretty well until recently. It's not been doing as well, just as I needed it the most. You can use the dried curry leaves like I mentioned earlier, or even the larger fresh ones. The curry leaves are a real must in this dish. You want that slightly Sri Lankan flavor in the back, otherwise it's just a Chinese stir fry. So leave it on a high heat, let them turn this translucent color. And now I've got about a tablespoon of ginger paste that goes in and about 1.5 tablespoons of garlic paste. Some people add ginger and garlic before the onions. I like to add it after. Now if you find it catches, like it is here, just add a splash of water. It's not the end of the world. You kind of want that burnt garlic flavor in there. So just add a little splash of water standing back. So you see the onions are nice and soft there. They've got a nice brown tinge to them. And at this stage, I'm going to add in about 1.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. That's double concentrated tomato paste. If you don't have this, then you could use about a third of a tin of chopped tomatoes or maybe 2 fresh tomatoes chopped up. It will take a little longer to cook down. And then I've got about the same quantity, about 1.5 tablespoons of tomato ketchup. So there you go, you see it coming along, you see it sticking to the sides as well, and for that reason I'm going to add a little more water just to deglaze slowly around the sides. That was about 1/3 of a cup of water, and then just give it a stir. At this stage we'll take it down to medium-low heat and just let it bubble away. The sauce is coming together. So our sauce is simmering here. I've still got a few things to add into that, which I'll do later. I've now got a non-stick pan, a little bit of just rapeseed oil or sunflower oil, vegetable oil, anything that has a high smoking point. Just coat the pan well. You need to be generous with the oil, so about 1 tablespoon in there. Now I'm going to go in with the paneer. I've chopped them up into little chunks of this size. Stick that in there. It's not going to take a long time. You just want that little bit of color. You could skip this step completely, but personally I think it's a lot nicer when you've got some color on the paneer. We're going to do the same with these vegetables here, and then when it looks like that, you give it a quick turn. You want to do the same thing. It's literally 10-15 seconds each side. So there the paneer is fried off. We just took it off. It's nicely browned and a little crisp on both sides and really soft in the middle. But I'm going to put these onions in first. So just to get some color. You're not going to fry these off. It's just, you don't want to soften them. You just want to get a touch of color. Just give it a quick stir on a high heat. Same oil that you use for the paneer. So reserve that. You can mix it up with the paneer because it's all going to go in the same dish. And then finally, chuck those chilies on for a second. So in the meantime, that sauce has completely reduced down. It's that kind of texture. It's got a beautiful gloss around it. You can even make a whole batch of this sauce, save some aside and do half vegetarian, half non-vegetarian, or you can use half later on. So once that's up, bring it up to temperature. These chilies have just got a little bit of a singe around them. and I'm going to chuck them all in here straight away. We'll also pick up everything else we had, our paneer, the onions, dump those in there, give it a quick stir. And at this stage, it's not going to take more than 2 minutes. So if you were doing this for family, if you were doing this ahead of time, you can make that sauce, save it for later, and then add all the vegetables in just before you're ready to eat. It's a great dish to make ahead of time. It needs a very small pinch of sugar and a good splash. So about half a tablespoon of coconut vinegar. You can use cider vinegar instead, or any vinegar you have lying around. I prefer white. I prefer something that's not too floral. And then finally, I'm going to add in the tomatoes, chopped green chilies, Indian chilies. This is just extra spice. And then this is quite essential, chili flakes. Everything else so far wasn't very hot. This is where the heat comes in from, and you want to keep that heat fairly fresh so it comes in at the end. And that's it. One final toss. And then I've got a spring onion here, which I'm going to chop up and garnish the dish with. Got the banana peppers, some amazing color there from obviously the bright red sauce in the background, that beautiful gloss because of the vinegar and tomatoes and sugar. You then got the banana chilies, the shallots, the whole onions, paneer. And then finally, just because we didn't have enough onions in there, I'm going to add some more of these chopped spring onions. They go right on top. If you do have some coriander at home, you can use chopped coriander as well. But eat it as soon as possible now, because you don't want these onions going soft. Enjoy.